Number 14. Angelfish. Angelfish are some of the most colorful fish you'll see swimming around a coral reef, but in the aquarium trade there's been an increasing demand for ones with no color at all, and has led to the breeding of an albino strain that can now be acquired around the world. They're exactly the same as their non-albino counterparts, except for the fact that they have white or transparent scales and pink eyes. The first ones, from which all those bred in captivity have descended from, were found in the waterways and floodplains of the Amazon basin where, in the wild, they hide in the roots of trees in search of insect larvae to eat. Usually growing up to 6 inches long, they're fairly easy to look after, but can become aggressive towards other fish if they don't have other angels in the tank with them. Number 13. Sea turtle. Possibly the rarest albino creature you'll ever see is the sea turtle. Normally, the species has enough trouble surviving, with only 1 in every 10,000 hatchlings living to adulthood. But with the increased difficulty of not blending into the environment, combined with the fact that only around 1 in hundreds of thousands of turtles are thought to be born albino, means that there are unlikely to be very many swimming in the oceans. With no coloration on their skin or shell, they actually appear pink in color because of the blood that's flowing through their veins near the surface. Their eyes are also pink, and from the evidence that's been collected from the few that have been seen, they appear to be weaker and less fully formed by the time they try to make the journey from nest to the water. Number 12. Iridescent shark. Native to the rivers across Southeast Asia, including the Mekong and Chao Phraya, iridescent sharks aren't actually a species of shark, but are instead a type of catfish. They get their name because of the way they glow in the dark while they're adolescents, but some don't exhibit this feature because they're born without any pigment whatsoever. Growing up to 4.3 feet long, albinism isn't believed to be a frequently occurring condition in the wild, but has become more common in recent decades because of pollutants that have been released into the rivers where they live. It would be creepy enough to encounter a normal iridescent shark in the water where you're swimming, but an albino one would surely send you running for dry land. Number 11. Dolphin. The various different dolphin species around the world typically have very similar colorations, but once in a while one is born without any melanin, and so might appear pink or white. Because they're a popular species for humans to swim with or photograph, albino dolphins are seen more often than many other animals, but it's not thought to be more common with them than anything else. Whenever they're seen, it's usually alongside a pod of normal-colored dolphins, and there's no sign that they're treated any differently by their peers. They do, however, struggle to grow to adulthood in the same way because the lack of pigment in their skin makes them far more susceptible to the harmful effects of the sun, and also affects their eyesight, so it's more difficult for them to hunt. Number 10. Octopus. In March of 2016, researchers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration were operating the Deep Discover vehicle at depths of around 13,000 feet around Hawaii when they noticed a pale white octopus on the sea floor. It lacked any chromatophores, which are pigment cells usually seen in cephalopods that allow them to change color, and also seemed to lack the muscular structure that would be expected. It's not known for sure whether this was a newly discovered species that always looks like this, or whether they had just so happened to come across an albino specimen, because at such depths it would be unlikely to pose a disadvantage to the creature due to the lack of natural sunlight to illuminate it. Now affectionately known as Casper, researchers are concerned about the long-term future of species like this one because of the mining operations that are taking place in the area. They tend to lay their eggs on manganese nodules that are formed on the ocean floor, and these are highly prized because of the precious metals they contain and the need for them in the manufacture of technology like cell phones and computers. Number 9. Blue marlin. Blue marlins are a large species of marlin that swim in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. They tend to grow up to 16 or 17 feet long and are a popular game fish. They're one of the most dominant species in the oceans, with only several predators to be wary of like sharks and killer whales. But because of overfishing, their numbers are now considered to be at risk. Normally blue-black on the top side and pale on the underside, they can actually change color thanks to the presence of light-reflecting skin cells and iridophores across their bodies. No record of an albino blue marlin has ever been made, that is, until 2014. During a charter fishing trip off the coast of Costa Rica that year, a 300-pound albino was caught on the line before being released. It's thought to be the only time one has ever been caught on camera, and despite countless boats fishing in the waters ever since, it hasn't been seen again. Number 8. Bristlenose pleco. Bristlenose plecos, which are also known as ancestras, are a species of nocturnal freshwater fish that are found throughout South America and Panama. Typically growing up to 6 inches long, they're known for the bony plates that cover their bodies, the sucker mouth, and tentacles that protrude from their heads to help them find food. They are popular in the aquarium trade and occasionally can be born fully albino. This happens because of genetic reasons as opposed to poor conditions while developing in the egg, and results in a fish that looks pinkish white, with particularly prominent pink eyes. In an aquarium, this doesn't pose too much of a problem if they aren't kept with aggressive fish, but in the wild, albinos rarely last very long at all. Their inability to camouflage in with the mud or plant debris in the rivers makes them a prime target for the predators, and with reduced vision thanks to the lack of melanin, they stand virtually no chance of escaping danger. Number 7. Seahorse. There are 45 different species of seahorse around the world, with most of them usually being found in shallow tropical waters. They live on coral reefs, seagrass beds, and mangroves, and can be found in a variety of different colors that help them to blend in with their environments. They can be anything up to 14 inches tall and are only one of 2 types of fish that can swim vertically. They aren't very good swimmers, however, and rely on their ability to ripple in the current and appear to predators as if they're a piece of floating grass. Very rarely they may be born without any pigment, either because of a genetic mutation or because they've been born in an area with high concentrations of pollution. It's not known how many are born this way in the wild, but because they're so easy for predators to find, it's unlikely many make it through to adulthood. Before we move on, be sure to subscribe to Top 5s with notifications on. Number 6. Dusky shark. Dusky sharks are a species that are found in tropical and warm waters around the world and are the apex predators in regions where they live. They are one of the slowest growing sharks, taking around 20 years to reach maturity. And because of this, their population numbers are particularly susceptible to human activity. In 2011, a fisherman caught a dusky shark off the coast of California and found that she was pregnant. They cut her open to see what was inside, and to their surprise, they found an albino baby that didn't have any pigment at all. There were several other fetuses too that were perfectly normal, but as they looked closer to the albino, they realized something else unusual about it. There was only one eye. The region where the shark was caught was said to be devoid of any evidence of pollutants or contamination, so it's unlikely that this was the cause of the shark's deformities. So researchers believe this was simply a fluke of genetics. If it had been born, it would have almost certainly have died soon after, both because its prey would have seen it coming, and it would have struggled to navigate with its impaired vision. Number 5. Sea cucumber. There are just under 2,000 species of sea cucumber around the world, most of which live in waters around Asia. They live on the sea floor, spending their lives scavenging for organic matter that's sunk from higher up, and in some areas can be found in colonies that number as many as 33 individuals for every square yard. Usually growing up to 12 inches long, they look very similar to worms and have a mouth at one end and an opening to dispose of waste at the other. Most have a ring of tentacles around their mouths which they can use to scour the silt for food, and unusually, they don't have any brain-like structures. Instead, having a ring of neural tissue around the mouth that controls their bodily functions. Sea cucumbers are a highly prized delicacy in China, and there are none as sought after as those that are albino. They're thought to account for somewhere between 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 100,000 individuals, and because of their rarity, command a huge price. Almost a decade ago, 5 albino sea cucumbers sold for the equivalent of $26,000 in the city of Jinan, but these prices are about to rapidly fall. Scientists have actually found the gene responsible for this coloration and are now purposefully breeding albino sea cucumbers in their millions for sale in seafood markets, meaning one day everyone will get a chance to try this delicacy for themselves. Number 4. Lobster. One morning in August of 2018, a fisherman from Maine went out to catch some lobsters just like he does every other day. But on this occasion, he was about to find something incredibly rare. When he lifted the trap to the surface, he found that he had caught a ghostly white lobster, something he had never seen before. Lobsters are a species that often show abnormalities in their development, and there are several unusual colorations such as cotton candy, blue, calico, orange, split-colored, Halloween, red, and yellow. The chances of finding an albino one, however, are extremely remote, with some estimates suggesting only 1 in every 100 million are born without any pigment in their skin or shells. They are by far the rarest of all types of lobsters, and this difference remains all the way through to the dinner plate. While blue, yellow, or any other color lobsters turn the traditional red when they're boiled, Albino ones retain their colorless appearance because there's no pigment to change color. Unusually hued ones aren't normally cooked, however, and are instead donated to aquariums or released back into the wild. As for this one that was caught, the fisherman decided that it was too small to take back to shore, so after he took a few photographs as proof, he threw it back into the water. Number 3. Crab. Cave environments often allow species to evolve differently to how they would outside, and researchers are frequently discovering new animals that have never before been seen. In northeast India, the state of Meghalaya is home to the 9 longest caves in the country, and regular expeditions are sent into their depths for both scientific and recreational purposes. Rarely do these trips return without having found something surprising, and there was one in 2017 that revealed the first known species of cave crab in India. In the furthest recesses of a 5-mile-long cave in the region, this albino crab was found hiding behind a rock. Not only was it the first for the country, but it's also to believe an entirely new species to science because it's vastly different from any other crabs that have been found nearby. This species is only about an inch long, and instead of having large pincers, it has short legs that are covered in hairs. Not only is it devoid of all color in its shell, but it has virtually no ability to see either. This is likely because it's evolved to live in a dark cave where eyesight isn't particularly useful, and because nothing else will see its bright color, its body can dedicate resources to other more important traits. Number 2. Whale. Albino whales have long been known to exist because of the extensive whaling that used to take place throughout the oceans, and they were seen as so enthralling that one even became the subject of Captain Ahab's obsession in Moby Dick. But they aren't particularly common and are a rare sight indeed. Albinism happens in whales in the same way that it does in humans, and occurs because the body is unable to produce melanin. Those that suffer from the condition have either white or light skin, and either red or pink eyes. Albinism has actually been documented in 20 different species of whale or dolphin, including humpback whales, sperm whales, and pilot whales. There's also a similar condition called leucism that causes them to appear albino but with dark eyes, so it's not always clear if an individual is truly albino or not. Probably the most famous albino whale is called Migaloo, and was first seen off the coast of Australia in 1991. With a name that translates to mean white fella from the Aboriginal, experts thought that it might be the only white whale alive in the world since it's so extremely rare. In 2008, however, another, which had been named Baloo, was spotted swimming near the Great Barrier Reef, and an all-white calf was seen in the same region in 2011. Because albinism is a genetic trait, it's believed that the 2 newer whales are descendants of Migaloo, who is now somewhat of a celebrity in his own right. Thought to be in his 30s, a research center has set up an online monitoring system to track sightings throughout his range as he migrates between Australia and Antarctica, and he's been spotted at least 50 different times. In an attempt to protect him from human activity, he's the subject of special legislation from the Queensland and Commonwealth Government of Australia, and any vessels that get within 1,500 feet of him or aircraft that descend beneath 2,000 feet are subject to a fine in excess of $10,000. It's a surprise to many that Migaloo has managed to survive for so long, but it's also proof that albinism doesn't guarantee a shorter life. Since Migaloo migrates with many other whales, he probably benefits from the defense of the whole pod if any predators approach. Whale watchers around the world hope one day to get a glimpse of the famed albino humpback, and as the species is known for traveling across such large distances, it's quite possible that he'll be coming to a bay near you soon. Number 1. Great white shark. Great white sharks are some of the most ferocious and feared predators on the planet. If you've ever seen one in the water, you'll know how their typical dark coloration on their top sides helps them to blend into the water until they're close, and this helps them sneak up on potential prey before launching an attack. It seems not all are born this way, however, and while very little is known about the juvenile great whites because they're hard to observe in the wild, a discovery in 2016 showed something surprising, that they can be born albino. This specimen was found washed up on shore, possibly having died due to a lack of food. Whether it was its coloration that caused this is unclear, but what is obvious is that it had suffered from a genetic abnormality that had prevented pigment from ever forming, and it would almost have certainly struggled to reach adulthood, even if it had been able to overcome whatever caused it to beach. Subscribe to Top 5s for more and check out some of our other popular videos.